Hey everyone, it's Teddy here, and you're listening to another episode of Don't Feel Look Up, where we interview some of the brightest minds in e-commerce and really try to understand how they use data to make better business decisions. I'm really happy to be sitting down on a Friday, a beautiful summer Friday, with Calvin Lammers, who's the SVP of Digital at Necessaire, an awesome personal care brand. Calvin, would love to get a sense of how you got to your role at Necessaire. Welcome
Yeah.
to the podcast, and really how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thanks for having me again, Teddy. Excited to chat. So yeah, I've been with Necessaire for almost a year and a half now. Actually, my first brand in the beauty space before this spent about 11 years still in the digital space, but more on the food and beverage grocery side. Really got in deep in the food and beverage world, loved it. And through that, met a couple of our investors at Necessaire and had the pleasure of working with a few of their previous portfolio brands. About a year and a half ago, I was connected through one of our investors to our CEO and co-founder Randy, and just fell in love with the brand, her vision, the product, and was already interested to make the move out of food and beverage and into the beauty space or another category. And really couldn't have found a better fit for myself and a better environment to break into the beauty space. Joined a year and a half ago to lead our digital and media teams. And it's been a fast rocket ship year and a half. Very much building the plane while we fly it, but it's been an awesome experience, and I think the first half of the year, 2024, has been evidence of we're doing some things right, and it's been awesome so far.
Yeah, kudos to that growth. I think even as a consumer, right, I'm just seeing the name more and more, and I think that's a reflection of all the great work you guys do. I actually want to chat about sort of the cross context experience you have. You
Yeah.
were in food and beverage, and now in personal care and body and beauty. Any things that are the same? Any things that are
hmm
different? I always like sort of digging into how people across categories and contexts think about their job the same or differently.
100%. Yeah, and I think it's a good question because I think that was one of my biggest questions going into this shift for myself. And I would say generally the channel mixes, the platforms, media tactics. I'd say there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of overlap. I think the biggest differences are maybe kind of the consideration, timing, and path to purchase. Just comparing a decision making for a $3.99 beverage versus a $55 body retinol. There's a lot more education, information needed on the consumer side to actually ultimately decide to make that purchase. So that timing between that first touch point and ultimate conversion is generally longer with what I've seen especially for premium beauty. I think along with that, that also changes how you need to structure your creative and the touch points along with that journey. So influencer, creator, skincare education, there's still very much a need, and we utilize our creative kind of partners and influencers heavily and have basically since we launched almost 6 years ago. Obviously there's that in the food and beverage space, but less of I think a requirement as it is with beauty. So I think influencer creators are still heavily important and in a needed tactic here. And I think we've also seen, especially with beauty, the trend with TikTok really being an awareness platform for us, which again happens in food and beverage, but it's more kind of ingrained in the beauty space for sure.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Would love to dive a little bit deeper into, you said influencer and creators playing such a huge role in the
Yeah.
journey to driving a purchase. How do you manage like cost of acquisition for
Yeah.
those relationships and just generally think about that channel in relation to maybe something that I would deem a little bit more top funnel like TikTok?
hmm Totally. Yeah, and I think we definitely have the benefit. I mean, we're digitally native, so we started with DTC first. So we've been, digitally focused, performance, with a lens on performance basically since we started 6 years ago. So we've had kind of that foundation. So we've had we built up a very good, kind of warehouse, analytic mindset where every creator we're going live, we're tracking their costs, their UTMs, their codes, Audacity, which we're using as our kind of data reporting warehouse currently.
Nice.
And so we're tracking ROAS, LTV for all of those creative partners. So we have a very kind of robust process for tracking performance with creative partners. Which is kind of a key kind of focus for us. But at the same time, because we are a premium brand and we are focused on brand and equity at the same time, we do have partners that totally we're not looking at them for sales, conversions, new customers. It really is an awareness sachet play with those. So we try to keep a healthy balance between performance, conversion, focused partners along with kind of brand equity, awareness building partners at the same time, and maintain that split.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a really interesting way to think about influencers and creators too. Is it more of a gut call initially with that partner specifically on like who they are and what they represent,
Right.
then them more of like a performance or a top funnel awareness driver of Necessaire?
Totally. Yeah. And it definitely is kind of that blend of like gut along with maybe some, knowledge of the team on like how like reviewing creators, feeds and past videos, like how good of hooks they generally have. So generally it is, a partnership between my team, the digital team and our brand team. You're really kind of looking at partners and having, the brand influencer team, review like, do they fit our brand? How do they speak about products? And then my team obviously being the performance lens and said, okay, do we think they're going to convert? How have they worked with other brands in the past? So it definitely is a very synergistic kind of partnership on that side.
Yeah, that's cool. And you mentioned using Dacity to like centralize and unify this data. Do you use any other tools that help you understand maybe like the halo effect of influencers and creators? There's obviously a lot of click-based performance
Right.
tracking you can do, but I think of just like the view impact and how you want
100%.
to understand that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think post-purchase survey data is the other key piece. So again, with our DTC business, so we've had a post-purchase survey running for a number of years at this point. So that's been that other element where having that kind of zero-party data to again flow back has really rounded out our kind of data set that we can utilize for tracking influencers. Obviously, the challenge that we now face, that everybody faces when they move omnichannel, is that we have zero visibility into the Sephora impact, the Amazon impact, the multi-channel impact, and so that's where we utilize DTC as directional for the impact those influencers have, because we don't have the attribution or tracking across our other retail outlets, but know that they do have a similar impact there too.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I actually wanted to dig in a little bit more about the relationship between D2C and retail. I know at Shop Talk we, filmed like a quick little 30-second
Mm-hmm.
clip on this. But I would love to understand specifically, like as you've grown your retail presence, how things have changed. Can you
Yeah,
just first off tell our audience like where you guys first made the plunge into retail and how you see
100%.
things now?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we started DTC, and then we had the great experience of getting in with Sephora a few years ago. Started .com, and then expanded into retail stores. Yeah, where we're nationally distributed at Sephora. They're a key retail partner, and that really was our first major retail partner that we had the pleasure of joining kind of forces with. So went into Sephora. We're also in Nordstrom now, Credo Beauty. We and then we launched on Amazon about a year and a half ago. So right when I joined, that was kind of our next big launch in launching on retail, which was no small decision, certainly for us. And so now fully available on Amazon, Sephora, DTC, and the other retail partners that I mentioned.
Cool. And then do you think of some of the retail marketing budget as a function of like the greater D2C budget? How do you sort of like line up,
Yeah.
your investment in the retail channel, the efficiency of that investment with, what you're doing with direct to consumer? and also
For
maybe
sure.
just give us a little bit of understanding on how the retailers like to work with you in that capacity.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that this is another area where a lot of similarities to my experience in the food and beverage space and in working with retailers, supporting efforts there. So yeah, we definitely see retail support or campaigns as my team oversees our total media budget, so we do have kind of reserved or dedicated budget for retail support and during kind of key moments. Sephora in particular has two real sale events or their beauty insider events, so that's a key one that during those week and a half, 2 week time period, that's again where we're working very closely with our influencer team and creator team to find partners to promote the Sephora events, and then we're boosting or sparking those on the media side. And so we have dedicated budget for those as well as during kind of key holiday periods. We definitely see. Just like we do with DTC or Amazon or any other kind of platform, during those key promo events, that's when we've got to beef up more conversion, sale objective, campaigns. And then in general, we have an always on efforts as well with visibility awareness, more like we're drawing ties to Sephora, and Necessaire is available at Sephora with our campaigns. We have those reach awareness consideration campaigns running always on, and then ramp up more conversion objectives during those peak promo moments.
Yeah, that's interesting. Would love to, I think, understand. You mentioned like the Sephora Beauty Insider campaigns, sales promotion periods, like the one that you ran a week and change ago during Memorial Day
Yeah,
weekend. Um, how do you measure sales and promotion periods to
sure.
sort of protect the lifetime value of customers?
Yeah.
How do you think about like the first order profitability too of
Hmm.
like someone acquired during a sale versus someone acquired during like a non-sale period? And
Yeah.
uh, yeah, if really if that customer acquisition is worth it in the long tail.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that's something that we've had a key kind of priority or focus on over the last year and a half. That we are a premium brand. We maybe had kind of steered a little bit too heavily into promo or leaning on promos to acquire customers. So we've really kind of pulled back. And I know we were chatting about this, but before we started recording, but we really kind of shifted to this focus on having kind of two hero kind of promo moments throughout the year. So it really tees it up as an acquisition vehicle as well as a retention vehicle
Yeah,
during those moments. And then along with that, with our kind of robust reporting capabilities, we are tracking those customer cohorts that we bring in during promos. What are we seeing in terms of retention, repeat values from customers that we bring in during those periods?
yeah,
And what we've seen is while we while we do take a hit, obviously, on profitability during those promos, we still are first order profitable, and we do see strong stickiness with those customers, and that's really all due to our CRM retention efforts. So our team has really built up a great cadence and flow that we have with kind of retaining those customers, getting them into our best sellers, our cross selling with our assortments, and then we do have other tactics such as direct mail, et cetera, to really kind of make sure that we're winning back or kind of retaining those high value customers that we bring in and potentially have lapsed post promo. So really, it's about building out that ecosystem and retention kind of environment to make sure you're retaining those customers at the same time.
makes a whole lot of sense. What's your most effective retention channel right now?
I would say it for sure is our email flows. We have a very healthy engaged list, but we've just kind of overhauled our our flow stack within Klaviyo, and then we have attentive, but email really is kind of the priority. And then, as I mentioned, we do have a direct mail kind of process to have more focus on those lapsed customers that for whatever reason we aren't kind of retaining through our email flows.
That makes sense. We've talked a lot about with past folks on the pod about this notion of like acquisition via, or excuse me, retention via acquisition.
Sure.
It sounds a little crazy, but I think what it really pairs down to is like using what we would formally say would be like a first customer acquisition channel, like
Yeah.
Facebook, to help remarket.
Yeah.
do you play into that strategy? How do you think about that strategy, like from a measurement perspective? If so,
Hmm.
yeah, I would love to hear how like the non email, SMS, and
Yeah,
direct mail channels even play into just a stickier and a higher LTV customer for
sure.
Necessaire.
Yeah, and we do play in that space. We have retention remarketing campaigns, running across all platforms. So it definitely is an element, but I would say it's definitely a smaller a small portion of our total budget because we really do want to lean on our owned channels in for retention efforts, and then dipping into or leveraging any of the paid channels or even direct mail for kind of those customers that we aren't gaining traction with the own channel. So that's what we've seen, and we also do see that with our affiliates, our creative partners. We do
Yeah.
see reactivation, and retention efforts through those partners as well, where we'll have customers that came in through a certain influencer code, and then don't make a purchase until that influencer posts again about them 6 months later. So that is also something that we're factoring into the retention mix.
Makes a whole lot of sense. I love asking this question at this point in our conversation because we've talked about direct mail,
Hmm.
email, SMS, TikTok, influencer, and creator. Imagine Meta is in the mix. Yeah, you can presume that with so many channels going on, how do you yeah, choose to understand what is most impactful in your media
Hmm.
mix? Do you use an MMM or an incrementality tool that layers on top of Dacity? Yeah, I would love to
Hmm.
just understand a little bit more about how you guys operationalize measurement when you're running so many different channels.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a challenge. We're still very much a scrappy startup in many ways. So we do not have an MMM or incrementality model in place currently. So it really is more doing a lot of testing and incrementality testing on top of that. So it is a little bit more manual with how we're kind of measuring that, but that's where we've done a lot of stress testing over the last year, where say we'll increase our influencer spend for the next 4 weeks by 40%. What kind of lift do we see across all channels? Okay, the next month, let's increase our TikTok paid budget by 50%. What kind of increase do we see across all channels? So kind of doing that methodical testing and measurement, and then obviously analysis of the performance is really how we've kind of found the healthy mix, and what channels are impacting us the most. Yeah, it becomes a challenge when you're an omni-channel and you don't have the real-time data and read. But I think that's where we get access to weekly sales data with Nordstrom, Sephora, so we're able to still kind of measure that on a weekly basis, and blend it into a good process for how we're testing that mix.
I can see how Audacity is a favorite tool of yours for for that sole reason of blending that retail and D2C data.
A lot
Um,
of lot of inputs. Yeah.
yeah, makes a ton of sense to me. I think what I love to understand at this point is, what is your favorite metric to
Yeah.
evaluate performance across these channels? We call it our North Star KPI, the thing you hold above anything else. So I'll ask that, but I want to hold it for one thing.
Yeah.
I actually love this notion of like just grassroots simple measurement and calling it
Hmm.
incrementality, defining your own system. Just spoke to Sarah Carazona, who is the former director of ecom at Olokai and Archipelago Brands, and she
Hmm.
mentioned really sort of just the same kind of homegrown mindset that kind of prevents like a single channel bias as well.
Right.
She mentioned like for Meta, CPAs historically had gone up for Olokai on
Hmm.
platform, but they were going up while offline and like direct and branded search exploded.
Yeah.
um, so
Interesting.
sort of logic to her finance team, right? That
Yeah.
CAC is increasing on these platforms, but we're also at an all-time high in our organic sources. And if you just
Right.
evaluate both of those things on a last click, you're just truly not understanding the synergy between the two. That's a
100%.
long and roundabout way of really asking you if you have seen that sort of avoidance of like almost cannibalizing
Right.
channels, or maybe just over analyzing a channel like Meta.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's, yeah, we've fallen into I hesitate to call it a trap, but yes, I think I've seen that firsthand. And I think that goes back to just, having those continued conversations. Like, again, we're a DTC native brand, so I think we, sometimes steer too closely on performance and for analyzing things. But I think that's good. Maybe jumping the gun, but going back to the North Star metric, but that's where I really have personally pushed us to take a more aggregate blended view. I mean, ER can be the most simplistic metric, but as an omni-channel brand, that is going to be the most insightful in terms of like how overall effective is your marketing, across the entire business. And you obviously have secondary KPIs, metrics, CAC, CPMs, et cetera, that you're blending into kind of paint a full picture. But if you have to choose one, if your MER is trending in a healthy direction and across the business, that really is going to be, I think, the best bellwether or the truest bellwether for how successful and effective your marketing is.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, and very interesting to see when you've blended so much, retail investment in your overall strategy, like how you need to look at things versus maybe like that pure play D2C, just looking at like
Right.
last click ROAS.
Yes.
Are are you a last click lover?
And I am not actually, just because I have gotten burned many times over by focusing solely on last click. And again, because I think this is where maybe my history in food and beverage really comes to play, because coming from an industry where 10% of all sales took place online, I had to have an omni-channel like retail kind of led mindsets. Obviously, going to a beauty world where it's a little bit more balanced between digital and retail sales. I think I've thankfully had gone through the ringer, been put through the ringer a little bit, and gone through those trials and tribulations with a focus on last click that can take a little bit more of a blended view on attribution.
Yeah, love to hear that. That makes a ton of sense too. Well, Calvin, I think this was an amazing conversation. Love
This is
hearing
great.
um, your perspective. A lot of the same questions we ask people. One of the best parts about Don't Be Look Up is you can kind of ask similar or same questions to different operators, but everyone comes from such a unique perspective, and yours certainly is unique. Before we go, would love for you to just tell our audience where we can find you online.
100%. I'm a LinkedIn guy through and through. So find me on LinkedIn, Calvin Lammers. Yeah, shoot me a message or send me a connection. As Teddy knows, I'm a big fan of networking and speaking with other like-minded people in the space. So would love to chat.
Yeah, you headed to any conferences in the near future?
I'll be at CommerceNext next week, actually doing a talk with Dan and the Dacity team on June 12th. So if anybody will be at CommerceNext, I'll see you out there.
Lovely. Yeah, great. Well, thanks for coming on. Don't Be Look Up, Calvin. It was an awesome conversation.
I'm here. Thanks for having me, Teddy. This was great.
All right.